Guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is October 24th of 2023. And as a reminder, I wanted to share information with you about the Bridge to Our Future Visualizing Outcomes that's taking place in November 12th. November 14th, and 15th and 16th. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week, there are going to be meetings. And so please show up if you're interested in the future of Grand Rapids. This is my third video on Grand Rapids being a 15-minute city. But yeah, it's basically that's where it's headed. So this video, I wanted to do a deep dive into the climate resiliency plan that was created in 2013, but it's a 20-year plan, so it's still being implemented right now. Before that, I have a few articles I want to share with you just to give you an idea of where this is going, unfortunately. So I'm going to jump in very quickly, show you this, so you know where the locations are, and I will have this linked down below. So please show up and see what's going on at these meetings, get an idea of what a Delphi meeting looks like. And if you haven't seen my second video on this topic, please do, because I talk about the Delphi technique. And I think it's important for you to understand before you go to that meeting what to expect. So without further ado, I found these two videos. Now this says Muskegon, this is Muskegon, but I have several articles to show it's not just Muskegon, but this was just a day ago. So I thought it was very timely, and I wanted to share it with you.
Muskegon will be installing
I need to turn this up.
cameras at 10 intersections. Officials say it's part of a crime fighting initiative. The city commission agreed to spend around $72,000 on a 2-year contract for the camera and data collection system. Officials have not said which intersections, only that many of them will be near the borders of the city. The cameras are triggered by vehicle motion and will take pictures of vehicles, including license plates, to see if the car is associated with any criminal activity.
Right. That's what they say.
They're not at all traffic enforcement cameras. They don't alert us to speed. They don't alert us to stoplight violations. There's no facial recognition. There's no way for us to tell who's in the vehicle. All it does is take a picture, a still photograph of the back of the vehicle.
The system can also share and request images from other communities, including Kent County.
Including Kent County, which is where Grand Rapids is located. So there's one video. Now this is another one, same day, 13 hours ago. And road diet is one of the key words if you're looking through any articles, or rather master plans in your area. Type in road diet, especially for your mobile, like mobile GR is what it's called here. And so they talk about road diet. It basically means turning lanes into bike lanes to minimize private vehicle traffic, promoting commuting, that sort of thing. It's all to get rid of the private car.
The leaders say what they've learned may lead to changes throughout the community.
Some drivers loved the experiment, but others did not. Today, 13-year size Jeremiah Brown talked with. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elena Holland.
And I'm Juliette Dragus. The Muskegon Road Diet on Shoreline Drive is finished, but city leaders say what they've learned may lead to changes throughout the community.
Some drivers loved the experiment, but others did not. Today, 13-year size Jeremiah Brown talked with people on both sides about the study and what could come next.
Elena and Julia, as you can see, the road diet here has ended, and the city says it's looking to use the data to develop possible future projects, not just for here, but around Muskegon as well. But some residents are saying that the city is misguided.
We have gathered a lot of data throughout the pilot.
And that's the main thing here, data. That's pretty much the bulk of this video. It's they want your data, and Big Brother is here if we allow them to be here.
Hard numbers, traffic counts, and things like that, and then a lot of feedback from the public.
The city of Muskegon.
Good morning, Dragonfly. Thank you guys for joining me, by the way. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and smash like.
Has now ended the pilot for a road diet on Shoreline Drive as they look to utilize the data collected. Vanderhyde saying that the data shows Shoreline can function as a one-lane road in each direction, with there being ideas on how to utilize the space.
We could perhaps have additional parking. We could perhaps
Sorry, another video was interrupting.
have additional park space. things like that.
But many residents feel that these
Additional park
ideas are
space.
misguided.
The sad part is this city has been redone 3 times in the last 75 to 100 years, and it's been redone again, all at taxpayers' expense.
Cheryl Wittenberg created the petition against the road diet and feels that community members are not being heard.
What we need is we need our roads, the size they are, maintained, and we need to slow down and say, hey, we're thinking about this.
Wittenberg believes the city should use tax money to prioritize maintaining what is already in place.
We want more crews to maintain what we already have in parks. We want affordable housing. We're feeling very uncomfortable, untrusting, and left out of the city.
While understanding that the city is receiving criticism and concerns from the public, Vanderhyde also expresses that there are those looking forward to what may come.
We hear a
Right
lot
here.
of folks who are
This is where he's going to actually tell the truth right here.
really excited about the potential for other uses in the corridor, right? Not just traffic, but pedestrians, bicycles, people walking, crossing Shoreline Drive easier.
We want to work with you. We want you to understand how important this is to us. We understand your fervor. We understand you think it's better. We humbly disagree, and it's our tax money.
From Muskegon,
And I love that lady. Couldn't have said it better myself. It's our tax money. Stop forcing this down our throat. And so I wanted to share those 2 videos. Now, this one is specifically about Grand Rapids. This is only 54 seconds long, but it's from 7 years ago, talking about Grand Rapids' new 2030 district.
The Grand Rapids 2030 District is a collaborative effort of community, public, and private sector leaders who have taken on the challenge set forth by Architecture 2030 to reduce emissions from transportation, energy, and water use by 50% by the year of 2030.
By 50%. Holy crap.
I'm happy to say that the Grand Rapids 2030 District includes 39 founding members, of which 20 are building owners, and that includes 61 properties throughout Grand Rapids for a total of 9,975,420 square feet in the downtown area.
And that was in 2015, the year that Obama sold us out once again, or rather just, re-upped his agreement, the United States agreement, rather, with the United Nations. So I'm not going to go in detail on these articles, but just to give you an idea, Grand Rapids Police to debut more mobile surveillance camera trailers. This was in 2022. They're a way for police to keep an eye on the community without having to be around. Don't you just love that? The mobile trailers have solar panels that stay powered, and they have certain capabilities, such as recording video and remote access and operation. And of course, it goes on, but I have another one. Grand Rapids City Commission approves funding for police drone program. This just happened. $100,000 will be used to purchase drones for Grand Rapids PD operations. This was August 22nd of 2023. Now you can see what's going on here. Cameras, surveillance. This is the future, unfortunately, that they have planned for us. And it's all for our safety, so they say. But again, if you give up your freedoms for safety, you deserve neither. I can't remember who said it. The quote is attributed, I'm sure, to several of the founding fathers, but the point is true, that we cannot expect to have freedom if we have all of this. Now, this says facial recognition shows up in public housing, small cities. It actually comes from this, Eyes on the Poor, cameras facial recognition watch over public housing, from the Washington Post. And they called out Grand Rapids public housing. But then this says Grand Rapids Housing Commission denies using facial recognition. So when you go to that other Washington Post article and I type in Grand Rapids, you know what? I'll show you really quick. So Grand Rapids, you see that there are 2 references, but you can't find them on the page. So they must have deleted them, and yet it's still in the coding or something. I don't understand exactly why that's doing that, but it must be that they've edited the article, because they're denying that there was any facial recognition used in Grand Rapids, one of the 6 cities in which public housing residents are being watched by facial recognition cameras. The Housing Commission told News 8 that's not true. Post-investigation found that nationally, facial recognition cameras are being used to punish and evict public housing residents, even for small violations on their lease. By the way, good morning, Zoltan the man. I appreciate you hanging out. Gravy time. Hopefully I provide some information that you didn't know today, and that's always the goal for me. So I'm not going to get into that one either. This is just showing a pattern. This is Detroit, but third person sues Detroit police over false arrest based on facial recognition, August 7th, 2023. And as the title suggests, they're using facial recognition cameras in Detroit, and I'm sure other places, because Michigan has departments for facial recognition, and SNAP is another one that's for monitoring, surveilling people and putting it into a database. So Petty said it's even more disheartening that when police arrested Woodruff, who was innocent, she was 8 months pregnant. The crime had occurred 2 weeks earlier, and the predator was not visibly pregnant. The perpetrator, I'm sorry, not predator, the perpetrator. You show up to a woman's door, you say, 2 weeks ago you were involved in a carjacking. She answers the door 8 months pregnant, and you proceed. At the very least, there's an expectation of common sense. See, this is the problem, though. Unfortunately, most police just follow orders, and they use and abuse their powers that we unfortunately have given them. Mayer noted that facial recognition hits are inevitably going to produce people who resemble the suspect. Police then put that image in a photo lineup, and eyewitnesses pick out the person who looks most like the perpetrator, the one provided by facial recognition algorithm. They are setting up a system that is custom built to result in false arrests, and that's what it has done multiple times here in Detroit. A total of 6 people are known to have been arrested based on faulty facial recognition matches. 3 of those cases are from Detroit. So where are the other 3 from? Come here, mobile facial recognition, frequently asked questions. And again, I'll have this link down below so you can look for yourself, but this is the state of Michigan. The Michigan State Police use mobile facial recognition. So when they say that this isn't for facial recognition, they could say that for now, but they could use it for whatever they want later. All they have to do is download a program. Once the hardware is out there, all they have to do is download software programs, and they can remotely upgrade their systems, even if they can't right now do facial recognition. So I don't trust them. Don't trust them at all. 25 cameras to capture photos of license plates for police being considered by Kent County Sheriff. This was in February of 2022. Advanced license plate readers technology is currently deployed across the country and has shown an effective resource in reducing crime, recovering stolen property, locating missing or endangered persons, and as an investigation resource to finding violent offenders, says the Kent County Sheriff Office. So I'm just going to show this last thing, and then I'm jumping into the Climate Resiliency Plan. This is just showing you what happens right now in London to some of these cameras. There's a camera right there. And all you have to type in is hashtag Blade Runners, and you will see that the Blade Runners are working hard. 1 in 4 are taken out right now in the London area because people did not want this. They did not vote for it, and their tax dollars are being utilized to put these in place. Someone did something to that one. And so again, I leave the question to you, like, what is the answer here? Because
doing is to stop the cars protest here on the bridge with the banner, and what we noticed is somebody's cut the cables, or they no longer use these cameras. I don't know, but there's 2 cameras here on the Parkway Bridge. You can see, I don't know if they're cut or whether they've deteriorated over time, but these cameras are not working.
They've been cut, and that was in the north, Blade Runners up north. So it is definitely a movement that is getting traction. Well done. They sawed it off. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if this is the answer, but if you don't want something and they're not listening to you, what do you do? Now, let's jump in. I did also highlight, I went through the entire Mobile GR plan that they've made. It's not an approved plan yet, but it's the final draft. There we go. It's the final draft. But all my highlights went away. So if I get time after this, I might do some keyword searches with you, but I'll have it linked down below and you can check it out. Again, road diet, smart, look up private vehicles or low emissions, those types of things. And you can find, unfortunately, the plan for a 15-minute city. And so this is the executive summary of the climate resiliency plan that was created in 2013 when you guys had a mayor. Oh, do I still have it up? Yes, right here. This was your mayor right here. And George Hartwell. And he was right there. He spoke on his participation in the 2015 United Nations Framework Conference on Climate Change in Paris, where he served as the UN representative for American mayors. So he directly went to the United Nations and presented Grand Rapids as a place to have a 15-minute city, although they don't call it 15-minute city, okay? But that doesn't mean that that's not what it is. It just means they know that smart and 15-minute cities are both frowned upon to the population, and so they use other terminology. All right, the outcome of this investigation was the identification of key impacts across community sectors and recommendations for confronting them. The Grand Rapids Climate Resiliency Report builds local expertise on top of climate science, research, and analysis. 25 expert interviews were conducted with contributions from a broad range of community sectors. Interviewees represented the following fields. So these are the fields that are captured, regulatory captured. Insurance, no surprise there. Academia, certainly no surprise there. Regional planning, transportation, food systems. That's a really dangerous one that they've captured. Emergency preparedness, sustainability, environmental services, community infrastructure, forestry, so your DNR, of course, finance, low impact development, built environment, community essential needs, fisheries, engineering, and energy. The modeling software, Magic. Don't you love that? Magic. It's magic, all right. Model for the assessment of greenhouse gas induced climate change with the regional scenario generator. Now, lower down in this plan, you're going to see that the model is based on an assumption, and the assumption comes from the International Panel of Climate Change, IPCC. So garbage in, garbage out. But the fact that they call it magic and it's talking about greenhouse-induced climate change, it's just, they're laughing at us, in my opinion. Version 5.2.3. Where do we find the links to the info you provide? So if you go to the bottom of any of my videos in the description, you just have to hit read more, and I put every single article that I talk about, and sometimes even a few that I didn't get to, and I just title that further reading, so that way you can look at it. Even though I wasn't able to present it, it was relevant to that topic. So thank you for that question, Connie. But yes, down in the description, always, I want all the information out there so you can see it for yourself. And I should actually get my website going, but that's a whole nother topic. The climate change variables of temperature and precipitation were projected through the years 2022 and 2042, roughly coinciding with the City of Grand Rapids' 20-year master planning process. So again, there's a lot here, so I'm just going to stick with my highlights, but I highly encourage you, if you live in Grand Rapids, you should know this. This is your plan for your city. I should know this too, because my husband works there, my family lives there, and so on. So that's why it directly affects me as well. The report defines climate resiliency as the ability of a community to simultaneously balance ecological, economic, and social systems to maintain or increase quality of life in an uncertain dynamic climate future. once again, I said this yesterday in my video, dynamic climate future. It's always been that way. Human beings have been here however long. I know that's debatable, but the climate has always been dynamic and we can survive. You know how we survive easier and better? Everybody has cheap energy, so we have heat, so then blizzards don't matter. Everybody has availability to buy a property. Property's cheap. So that way you can stay in when it's raining really hard and when there's storms. Like, having cheap energy is the solution to any weather. And yet, because of this, we are going to have the most expensive energy if we have energy at all. A resilient community can mitigate both its contribution to climate change and the disruption of local climate impacts. Grand Rapids needs a climate resiliency champion and individuals or organizations to own the issue in the community. Oh, I don't see the links after hitting more. I'm sorry. So I do, at the end of the video, I put all of the links because it depends on what I can get to and kind of how the flow of the live stream goes. So give me just a half hour to an hour after the live stream and I will have everything down there. So sorry about that confusion. So yeah, Grand Rapids needs a climate resiliency champion to own the issue in the community and focus on the implementation and financing of projects and programs. Now, when they use the word champion, there's another key word for you. I'm going to bring you, where are we? Right here. Oh, I'm sorry. I was not on the right thing when I was showing you that. So here is the Champions for Nature. Is a community of leaders disrupting business as usual to lead the way to a nature-positive global economy and halt nature loss by 2030. Champions of Nature. This is a World Economic Forum program. It's a community of leaders using their experience and ambitions to pave the way to a net zero, nature-positive global economy by 2030. This community gathers champions from the private and public sector, public and private, civil society, and academia, all playing complementary roles in the multi-stakeholder approach. So going back over here, and I'm sorry I didn't have it up. I'm on the contents page still. This is the Grand Rapids Climate Resiliency Report that I was reading earlier. So when you're talking about magic and you're talking about resiliency champions, city resiliency efforts going forward should focus on the selection, financing, and implementation of projects as current planning documents identify existing best practices. Social, parks, pools, splash pads, and natural and green recreation areas should be considered by city decision makers as critical resiliency infrastructure that enhances quality of life. Preserve and grow mixed use and dense development neighborhoods. Dense development, making essential services and businesses accessible through multimodal means of transportation. Once again, multimodal is another one of those keywords you should look for. Support policy proposals to increase energy efficiency and clean energy at the state level. Simultaneously, move to identify and adapt a community-wide energy efficiency target. Explore legal, policy, and economic frameworks that enable the city of Grand Rapids to build a more autonomous and resilient energy system. The city needs a system that allows greater energy sovereignty and enables the pursuit of goals related to pricing, distributed energy system efficiency, and renewable energy. I just think it's hilarious. The city needs a system that allows greater energy sovereignty. That would mean cheaper energy, not more expensive, not exclusive to cities. Change the transportation culture in Grand Rapids to one that is built around multimodal. Again, multimodal just means no private cars. That's really what it means. They want multimodal means EV, automated, like Ubers and stuff. So there will be cars. You won't own a private car. But you will be able to go on your phone and use your digital ID and go beep, boop, beep, and an automated car. This is their plan by 2030. An automated car will pick you up. That's the only time. Or there's a bus. Or you could walk. Or you could take a bike. So that's your multimodal. Everything but a private car. vital streets, and that usually vital streets is like a plan of its own. That provides equal access for all social levels with diverse transportation requirements. Come down here, Grand Rapids needs resources, champions, and a directive to build a more climate resilient community. Report methodology. So the report combines local expert opinion with climate science, research, and analysis. So, the whole plan that they've created is set up again on a fallacy. It utilizes local climate data prepared by Elena. I'm not even going to go there. I can't say it. It's a Russian name, and I did actually mention her in the last Grand Rapids 15-minute video. She went to the University of Moscow, and now she is associated with Western University and Grand Valley State University. So she went to Western, which Western is known for its activism. I didn't know that. I read that in an article on the colleges around here. So climate data was prepared by this Russian professor, and she learned in University of Moscow because they're doing the Sustainable Development Goals as well there. Grand Valley State University's Environmental Studies program. She's the Geography and Planning professor. The report leans heavily on local, regional, state, and national climate documents with a preference for local information. Zoltan says, a few years ago, I noticed vehicles with cameras mounted on the top driving around GR. When I looked up the company, I found they were mapping the entire city roads and tracking road conditions. Yeah, I mean, thank you for that information. Unfortunately, the cameras are becoming more and more prevalent for whatever excuse, but really it just leads less and less privacy and freedom for us. But yes, I'm sure that what they were doing was part of Mobile GR too, the plan that they have a final draft of. They haven't necessarily said this is it, but I will have that final draft down in the comments below, or the description rather. The interviews included, they conducted 25 climate resiliency interviews. Okay, I already named off all of those captured departments, so I'm going to move forward. The report was conceived by Harris Ali Basic of the Grand Rapids Office in Energy and Sustainability, and strongly supported by the mayor. Now, this individual is also involved with the United Nations, as was the mayor at the time. So the United Nations is all over this document. Funding for the project came in the form of a grant that the city received from the 2012 Mayor's Climate Protection Awards, which was sponsored by the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Walmart. Oh yeah, Walmart, of course, is involved, because when you want to have a monopoly, you want to have barriers to entry, and so that means you want to have government regulations, and that's part of that public-private partnership fascism that we see. You know, Walmart loves having $15 minimum wage, $15 an hour, but you know, Weeby's a party store and morally can't afford that. And I'm not trying to call them out. I'm saying a small business, a very small business, you can't afford $15 an hour. And why is the government involved? They should not be involved in somebody's business. And that's just my opinion. The report was, keep going. The $25,000 award was split equally between the WMEAC and the Urban Forestry Initiative of Friends of Grand Rapids Parks. Connie says, I think or thought they were for Google Maps. They do as well for Google Maps, yes. But really quick, I'll just show you this. I'm sure that it probably had something to do with this. So this is the 21st Century Mobility Strategy, Goal 3 for Grand Rapids. And again, I highly recommend you look. This is for downtown Grand Rapids specifically. And so it could have been for this as well. It's probably used for an array of surveillance uses, you know. But yeah, look at this. So this is what was happening, and this is what they want it to be. So permanent bike lane separated by trees, only one lane each way. This is Fulton Street long-term approach, and this is Fulton Street short-term. This is what they just were doing recently. So yeah, again, this document has a lot of the keywords that you will see, and then a lot of the road diets to stop private traffic I mean, basically, it's like the ULEZ zones. They're just not calling it ULEZ zones, the ultra low emission zones. So I guess ULEZ zones is redundant. I apologize. ULEZ and low traffic neighborhoods. They're not using these terms like London is, but it's the same concept, unfortunately. Oh, it did go back to the top, didn't it? Maybe not. Sorry, I lost my place for a minute, but the Grand Rapids Climate Resiliency Report seeks to identify the largest and most likely impacts of climate change on core city functions and services. It discusses current and potential responses, innovations, and best practice solutions. I think I might have already read that. I'm sorry. I will find my spot. Okay, here we go. Grand Rapids, just to give some idea of what Grand Rapids is all about. Sustainability leadership. It's located in west central Michigan, roughly 30 miles east of Lake Michigan. The Grand River, a major state waterway, runs through the center of the city, and they've taken out all the dams from the city. I believe it's done by now. The second largest city in Michigan has a population of 190,000, with more than 1.3 million in the metropolitan area, according to a 2012 census. Grand Rapids has a history of leadership, creativity, and entrepreneurship. In 1881, one of the country's first hydroelectric plants was installed on the city's west side. In 1945, Grand Rapids became the first city in the United States to add fluoride to its drinking water. If you know anything about fluoride in the drinking water, people now say that it's horrible and that it actually damages your pineal gland or pineal gland, however you want to say it, and calcifies it. And that is supposedly the seat of your soul. Now, of course, I don't know the truth to all that. I won't know until I die, but I don't like the idea that anything is being calcified. And I know fluoride is in rat poison. So with those things in mind, I don't really like fluoride in my toothpaste or my water. I think I don't need it. We weren't born with toothpaste in our mouths or in our water, so why do we have it? Grand Rapids is best known today for its bustling urban redevelopment, the world's largest art competition, and its many sustainable initiatives and accomplishments. Grand Rapids boasts the highest per capita number of buildings with leadership in energy and environmental design, so LEED certification in the United States. It was the first city in the country to be recognized by the United Nations University as a regional center of expertise for education on sustainable development. The metropolitan region is home to several of the nation's most respected sustainable business innovators. Now, sorry, but I don't think that's a good thing, Grand Rapids. That's not a good thing at all. In fact, I think I want to do a video specifically on the United Nations and how they came to be and how it's actually a really corrupt cartel that has gone outside the bounds of, country jurisdiction. Like they're above countries. It's just crazy to me that people trust that. Nobody voted for anybody in the United Nations. Nobody in any country. So who put these people in place, right? The city of Grand Rapids has been recognized nationally and and internationally for its sustainability initiatives and use of the triple bottom line decision-making framework in its key planning documents and processes. The National League of Cities recently launched Grand Rapids for its recent successes, recently lauded Grand Rapids for its recent successes in green building development and ambitious community-wide sustainability initiatives to entice new development and new businesses. This reminds me of like the League of Nations, which was Woodrow Wilson's idea after World War I, but it fell apart. So then we had World War II to get the United Nations in. So it took 2 world wars in order to get their elite group of individuals that are above nations together. But that's what that reminds me of, the National League of Cities. Sustainability was a key focus of the 2011 update of the Grand Rapids Master Plan, the result of the multi-year Green Grand Rapids Community Planning Initiative. So the master plan was created with Green Grand Rapids in mind. The City of Grand Rapids Sustainability Plan institutionalized the use of the triple bottom line in municipal decision-making. setting goals and objectives specific to each area, and requiring planners to go through a plan, do, check, act process to ensure that all projects meet those goals. So nothing will happen in the city unless it's meeting the green climate initiatives, meeting those goals. While never before as prominent as during the tenure of Mayor Hartwell, sustainability has been a key factor in the city's planning efforts for some time. I love how they say that. Well, never before as prominent as when this United Nations mayor was in. Sustainability has been a key factor. The city responded to the realities of the declining economy with its 2011 transformational investment plan. Real quick, Connie says it also attacks the thyroid gland. I'm assuming you're talking about fluoride, and I'm sure I didn't know about that. Thank you for letting me know. But there's all kinds of damages with fluoride. And yes, Zoltan the Man is reporting from GR. Connie, I don't think Connie's in GR. I'm sorry if I'm wrong on that. Among other things, it ensured that citizens would get the level of service that they expect while decreasing costs and increasing transparency through a dashboard of accomplishments and expenditures. As new problems have arisen, city leaders are expanding this portfolio of plans, forming a blueprint for a sustainable future. The Grand Rapids Climate Resiliency Report that we're reading is the latest edition. Again, this was in 2013, but it's still being implemented to this day. Okay, Connie's in GR. Sorry I was wrong about that, Connie. The city of Grand Rapids has also been effective in utilizing community partnerships to advance economic, social, and environmental initiatives. Key partnerships include a waste minimization and recycling promotion that supports local businesses with Local First, regional transportation planning with Grand Valley Metro Council, which someday I will dive into the Transportation 2045, Michigan Transportation 2045 Act, but I think this might pair well with that, the Grand Valley Metro Council. Gotta look into that. A residential home energy program through the WMEAC, urban tree canopy analysis and planning with Friends of Grand Rapids Parks, and neighborhood development with Seeds of Promise. The Grand Rapids Community Sustainability Partnership is a city-sponsored program with 225 members. In general, a culture of sustainability is alive and well in Grand Rapids. It has been adopted by the local government, businesses, nonprofits, foundations, and neighborhood organizations. However, there are practical reasons for looking into the impact of climate change on local community. In the article entitled "Local Governments Must Take Charge of Building Resilient Communities," this United Nations individual argues that climate change presents a whole new set of challenges when it comes to emergency planning and preparedness for municipalities, and concludes that both the planning and investments in infrastructure made by the city were put to the test with recent flood and extreme heat waves in the summer of 2012 and 2013. Now, I was not here in those years. It was the end of my military career, but I'm sure that they're exaggerating it to make it seem like it was worse than what it was. Just like they say, heavy torrential rains. It's like I remember having rainstorms, really bad rainstorms, all growing up. And if you have the proper drainage in the city, if the city's doing the right things, then it shouldn't be an issue to have a ton of rain. Especially in Michigan, where there's so much water around here. Climate resiliency represents a new paradigm for local sustainability. Finally, resiliency recognizes the existence of opportunities on which it capitalizes in a dynamic climate future. Goes into understanding climate change. I didn't really go into that because, again, right here, there is a scientific consensus. I think I've said it before. That's an oxymoron. There is no such thing as a scientific consensus. There should be no consensus in science. It's not how real science works. So that tells me that this is a narrative that they've made up to push their ideologies onto us and their freaking planning onto us, their city planning. Climate change is a result of an increased proportion of greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere. There's a scientific consensus that says that. Continuing forth, come down here as a part of the Kyoto Protocol. So, of course, I'm like, what the hell is the Kyoto Protocol? And I have an article to show you. It was adopted on the 11th of December 1997 and entered into force on 16 February 2005. Currently, there are 192 parties in the Kyoto Protocol. In short, this protocol operationalizes the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change by committing industrialized countries and economies in transition to limit or reduce greenhouse gas emissions in accordance with agreed individual targets. The convention itself only asks these countries to adopt policies and measures on mitigation and to report periodically. So it's a United Nations program. Imagine that. The scientific community identified a specific global temperature gain over pre-industrial levels at which damage to the Earth's systems will have extreme consequences for humanity. How could they do that? Like, that's the first thing I ask. How? How can you identify specific global temperature gain over pre-industrial levels at which damage to the Earth's systems will have extreme consequences for humanity? It makes no sense. You come down here and we have climate change in the Midwest. It says data shows that winter ice coverage in the lake decreased by 71% between 1973 and 2011. Now, why do they pick these numbers? Why 1973? Is it because it fits their narrative? Like if you go back 100 years, that's the thing with data, right? It depends on what data set you are looking at. That's something Thomas Sowell always talks about. So the data set being these years, in between these years, making it 71%, again, it's fitting their narrative. You can't trust this kind of data selection that they're doing. Climate change in Grand Rapids. With the support of Grand Valley State University's professor, this project employed the model for the assessment of greenhouse gas-induced climate change and regional scenario generator, developed by the National Center for Atmospheric Research. While MAGIC, Sengen, has been accepted and used by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and other agencies to model climate change, its ability to emulate real-world trends is limited. In addition to the inherent uncertainty of climate modeling, MAGIC Sengen has a significant limitation in that it deals in seasonal averages and is not capable of forecasting extreme weather trends. So how are they creating all this narrative? How are they making all this stuff up based on this model? Like, it's inherent uncertainty of climate modeling. This report's MAGIC climate change analysis was modeled to align with the Grand Rapids master planning process, right? It was modeled to align, garbage in, garbage out. They wanted it to look this way so that their plans look like they're appropriate. Right here it says a coupled gas cycle and atmosphere ocean generated circulation database climate change model with an assumed A1B scenario as developed in the IPCC's special report. Assumed. And it's a lot of assumption in all of this science that I don't like. Like assuming that resources are finite, limits to growth. Though only projecting through the middle of the century, the trend though they only project through the middle of the century, and why do they do that? The trend shown through this analysis is in accordance with the National Climate Assessment and Union of Concerned Scientists climate change projections for Michigan through the end of the 21st century. I mean, they tell on themselves, in my opinion, don't you think? The impacts most likely to test resiliency are due to seasonal variability and the possibility of extreme swings in temperature and precipitation from year to year and from season to season. The MAGIC Sengen results indicate that there is a strong likelihood of variance in temperature and precipitation change patterns within each year, such that some seasons are likely to get warmer and incur more precipitation, while the opposite may occur in others. For example, the largest increases in temperature are predicted during the coldest season, winter. The months with the least amount of predicted temperature rise are during the summer. So it's just going to get warmer in the winter? Why is that a problem? Like now you're going to say because of bugs or something? I think they do talk about mosquitoes coming, different breeds of mosquitoes because it's warming up. Well, I'm sorry, but cold kills more than heat. and you can grow a lot more when it's warmer. So I would really prefer that it got warmer in the winter and wouldn't mind a little bit warmer in the summer. Connie says weather manipulation. Yes. Geoengineeringwatch.org. I highly recommend everybody check that out. He has tons of different, real scientific studies, I guess, experiments. There's real science on his website. There's no consensus. Because, yeah. And Connie says Gates breeds mosquitoes. Yes, he makes little nanotech mosquitoes and puts them out there. Oh, but it's all for the greater good. Don't you trust him? Can't believe you don't trust him, Connie. And Zoltan the Man, glad I'm not the only one in the city trying to figure this game out. Me too. I hope there are tons more people. Hopefully you share this with people and they'll actually listen, because it's where you live. This really will directly affect your life. So it's important. The increases during the winter period are the cause of a predicted increase in average annual temperatures. This trend could drastically alter seasonal patterns in Michigan and have implications on flora and fauna as well as on energy needs and water cycles. Guess what? This place is intelligently designed. We're going to be okay, guys. Using a proportional, it's only man that's messing everything up. Human beings, mankind, not men specifically, because there's plenty of women. I mean, Hillary Clinton is the first one that comes to mind that are, evil POSs pushing this stuff. Using a proportional back of the envelope calculation based on current emission levels, Grand Rapids' share of the worldwide limit is about 2 million metric tons. So they're talking about carbon being a pollution, which we know is BS. Carbon is not a pollution. Come down here recently, Mayor George Hartwell joined other mayors in signing the Resilient Communities Agreement letter. It pledged to lead the creation of more resilient cities, towns, and counties built to overcome our nation's extreme weather, energy, and economic challenges. The only reason we're having such economic challenges is because of this false premise. Decreasing flows in river will lead to decreased production of hydroelectric power. So this is the U.S. EPA identifies the following key major impacts. Warming is likely to increase summer peak electricity demand. Increased evaporation will impact energy-consuming water processes. Demand for cooling energy will increase and demand for heating will decrease. Americans will use more electricity for air conditioning and less natural gas, oil, and wood for heating. So the Michigan Public Service Commission, MPSC, is a regulatory agency tasked with anticipating changes in the energy sector. While the MPSC hasn't directly addressed climate change in a dedicated report, it is currently researching the issue from an emergency preparedness perspective. I did write a note here. Climate lockdowns to save energy. It's potential. When they talk about getting us all on the electrical grid, but then they're talking about saving energy. Climate lockdowns are in our future, again, only if we allow it. These people want that for us, but we can't say no. It just takes a large group of aware individuals. And by the way, the MPSC is the government section that wants to take over the wind and solar energy, so that take that power away from the townships and give it to them. So they want more power. Come down here, according to Nancy Papa, manager of long-term strategy for consumers energy. Extreme temperatures and high humidity could challenge our system to deliver the energy needed to cool people's homes. Additionally, she says that system transmission becomes less efficient during high heat, high humidity events because of reduced grid conductivity. Put another way, the hotter it gets, the more energy is wasted in transmission. Extreme storm events could also bring flooding and high winds, which can impact the reliable delivery of liquid fuels. Michigan's energy supply is largely fossil and mostly imported. All of Michigan's coal is imported, as well as a vast majority of its natural gas and liquid fuels. This dependence increases climate change vulnerabilities. Why don't we have any electricity that we're generating ourselves? And now they're going to take out the dams because then they don't generate much electricity because of the Clean Water Act anyway. But it's just so confusing because these are the same people that are taking away our options and giving us less reliable wind and solar. I mean, extreme storm events, high winds, you can't run a wind turbine if it's high winds. You can't get sun if you're an extreme storm event. So, none of it makes sense unless you know the master plan, which is really, it's neo-feudalism, the new feudal age coming upon us. So I haven't read this, I just picked this one up, but it's a warning to global middle class. That's what they want for us, because they believe the resources are finite. And, Bill Maher and Candace Owens were just on a podcast together. I highly recommend you check it out because Bill Maher was saying that resources are finite. That's why you shouldn't have children, trying to make her feel guilty about being pregnant, having, I think, her third child. And I don't know if he can't see how anti-human his whole idea is because of that one assumption that resources are finite. That leads to don't have babies. It's bad for the world. Fossil fuel is a lie. Yes, you're right. And that's another thing. My husband wants me to do a video on how they're not fossil fuels at all. That's not how oil is produced. It's all a myth. We shouldn't even be calling them fossil fuels. So local resiliency demands that communities not only brace themselves against impacts, but also do their part in understanding and mitigating their own contributions to climate change. So again, you don't need a car, pleb, because you need to mitigate your own contribution to climate change. A resilient energy system would be composed of a diverse portfolio of energy sources that have little or no CO2 emissions. CO2, we are carbon-based life forms. So it's anti-life. It would transport energy through an efficient, hardened electrical infrastructure that is scale diverse, geographically distributed, redundant, and smartly interconnected. Smartly interconnected. So this is talking about energy-water nexus. In addition to its use for shipping fuels and energy equipment, water plays a role in the production and distribution of energy. For example, Consumers Energy and other energy providers use water to cool major energy plants. Yes, and water is also used to cool all those databases that are storing your data. Huge warehouses full of computers that are just storing your data so that they can use it against us. But that's okay. We need to cut water consumption for the public by 50% by 2030. We need to stop using the water, but these industries, these semiconductor plants, these EV battery plants, they can use all the water they want. We need to cut our water consumption. For example, Consumers Energy, yes, okay. The intake pipes of these plants are currently designed for the 100-year low water level. The drought in 2012 brought with it some near record low water levels, specifically in the Michigan Huron system. Well, shortly after that, the record level was high, right? So it went from low to high. Basically, the world has cycles. The earth is alive. And so, yes, again, we need to be nice to Mother Earth and we need to keep her clean and be good stewards. But that does not mean we need to cut our water consumption by 50%. While lake levels have not dropped to a 100-year low yet, there is growing concern that if the trend continues, a bunch of assumptions. Energy producers may need to modify their facilities and infrastructure to increase resiliency against fluctuating lake levels. Yeah, and I think most people, well, I don't know if they'll even read this, but the fact, you read that and just believe it. While they haven't dropped to a 100-year low yet, there's growing concern that if the trend continues, then they may need to modify their facilities. And so now we're going to change the whole way we live because of if and may and possible and assumptions and assuming. On the opposite end of the spectrum, spikes in precipitation can lead to increased electricity demand from water treatment facilities to keep up with the influx of water from rain. Spikes in precipitation. I mean, yeah, they make it so even rain is something to be afraid of. Like, oh, rain could really mess us up. Water and energy planning models will have to be updated and deployed within Grand Rapids and surrounding regions to prepare for expected increased weather variability. Once again, weather has always been variable, had variability. So they're acting like we are so fragile. They need to protect us. Don't you know the government needs to save us? It needs to keep us safe. It needs cameras everywhere to watch you. And you know those cameras, by the way, that the Blade Runners are taking down, they're at the point, because they're a couple of years ahead of us, where they're being scanned. If the car goes too many times into a specific zone, the camera knows about it. And because they're keeping track of all the data, how many times you go to the zone, how long you're there, all of that is kept track. So now you're being fined $12 a day because you're only supposed to be there 100 days out of the year, but you're there 101, 102. So now it's nuts. That's the future of the cameras if we allow it. Implement water use efficiency, use climate smart water management tools such as groundwater banking and water recycling. Factor energy use into component of water use, including transport and treatment. Factor climate change into feasibility analysis and project design. How? How are you going to do that? Particularly with storage and surface facilities. In early 2013, Governor Rick Snyder administration enlisted the MPSC and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to lead a series of 7 public forums across the state. So, just so everybody is aware, Governor Rick Snyder was a Republican and Hartwell was a Democrat. And so, again, it's bipartisan, this movement. There's both sides of the aisle are pushing forward this, Agenda 21. The goal was to gather input from various citizens, businesses, and other organizations to help create a statewide energy plan. 2 of the forums were held in West Michigan, one in Grand Rapids and the other in Kalamazoo, scheduled for the release in late 2013. The plan will focus on reliability, affordability, and the environment. It is a step toward understanding communities' needs and the weaknesses and opportunities that exist on both supply and demand side of the energy system. 2008, Michigan enacted Public Acts 295 and 286 as the foundation of its statewide energy policy. From a climate environmental perspective, the state renewable portfolio standards and energy optimization standards enshrined in those laws represent progress. It's progress, baby. The MPSC believes that the standards also kept Michigan competitive with outside energy markets while benefiting businesses and citizens. PA 295 featured a statewide renewable electric standard of 10% renewable energy by 2015, an electric efficiency standard that ramped up 1% annually, and a gas efficiency standard of 0.75%. So, according to Allie Basic, director of the City of Grand Rapids Office of Energy and Sustainability, energy efficiency could be a factor that provides the greatest contribution to the community from a triple bottom line perspective. He explains that if you address energy efficiency properly, it's a simple financial proposition. A financial proposition. The benefits of energy efficiency have attracted attention from the highest levels of government and business. In his 2013 State of the Union address, President Barack Obama set a new goal for America to cut in half the energy wasted by our homes and businesses over the next 20 years. Our homes, that came first, our homes and businesses. Well, businesses have been demolished the last 3 years, so that's not as much of an issue anymore. The only businesses are the big ones, and they can use as much resources as they want because they can just pay for carbon footprint offset, emissions offset. So come down here, the built environment. the way in which our civilization, community, and individual buildings are built is a large contributor to climate change. And this is why the building code has been changed, and now you won't be able to have you will only have electric stoves and electric heaters, and they're getting rid of the natural gas or phasing it out in the building code itself. So no new buildings will have gas as the means of heating your home or cooking food. Which, another quick side note, over in California, there is a famous chef, and I should bring up the article, but there was a famous chef that he threatened to leave California if he couldn't keep his gas stoves at his restaurant. And what did they do? They said, "Oh, we'll give you an exception." And this guy is a worldwide famous chef, and so much so that Rockefeller Foundation had a press release and said, absolutely, he should be allowed to keep his gas stoves, but everybody else needs to get rid of their gas stoves. So it's rules for us, but not for them. They want to be able to have delicious food by that famous chef, and he needs a gas stove in order to cook his delicious food. So he gets an exception, he gets a pass. But you and I will have to have electric stoves. It's annoying. I mean, it's beyond annoying, but I just see all these different things going on. And it's like, how are we allowing this to happen? How is that okay? That because he's a famous chef for the elites, that he gets to keep his shit and we don't. In general, the built environment represents an important component of the climate resiliency discussion, and to a certain extent encapsulates the issues as a whole. Some of this is simply common sense. Sitting buildings adjacent to the Grand River, for instance, puts these properties at higher risk for flooding damage. So no more buildings are being built adjacent to the Grand River. And that kind of reminds me of Maui, right? That area, unfortunately, that got destroyed by the fire. The governor has already said no one's building on the ocean. Now, it's for your safety because allegedly the sea levels are going to rise. But we all know that's BS because the elites are elitists. They're not elite. They're not better than us. The elitists are still buying property on the shoreline. I mean, Obama just a few years ago, $14 million ocean front property in Florida. So if they really and truly believed that the oceans were going to rise, they wouldn't buy those types of property. But they don't believe that. They know that's not true. I mean, the only one that knows that the sea levels are going to rise is the grand architect of this whole thing. So in general, the built environment represents an important component. Other points of discussion are less obvious, particularly those related to what has been called a resilient, low-carbon community. In his action plan for community resiliency, Stephen Coyle makes a distinction between a conventional, high-carbon built environment and a resilient, low-carbon built environment. So now we can actually say resilient means low carbon. Right? Am I wrong for assuming that? That's what it looks like to me. In his model, there are two goals for the creation of a sustainable, resilient community. Ensure that future patterns of growth and regrowth are efficient, resource-conserving, ecologically benign, and socioeconomically vibrant. So, yeah, they want to conserve the resources because they believe that they're finite. Zoltan the man, yes, rules for thee, not for me. And I don't know why anybody puts up with it. Why are we putting up with it? Even as the individual building level, the importance of the built environment cannot be understated. Americans spend 90% of their time inside buildings. These are generally the largest operational expenses and most significant asset for both organizations and individuals. They fulfill a universal basic need. A universal basic need. I think that's going to come up in the future, universal basic income, when unfortunately a lot of people don't have jobs. They're already, I think Canada, one of the Western countries, is already implementing a universal basic income, trying it out. So everybody's trying out something different, being experimented on. But universal basic need to have a house, would lead to, and don't get me wrong, I do think everybody should be able to have a home, but not the way they're doing it, which is basically government tenement housing. They're going to create all of these office buildings. They're going to be mixed use housing where we're stacked on top of each other to conserve resources, of course. But in that way, everybody has their universal basic need fulfilled, where you all live in a little tiny shelter. You're in a shelter, but it's 200 square feet for everything. They are also a large contributor to climate change in the United States. According to U.S. Energy Information Administration, residential and commercial buildings account for approximately 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. As such, the built environment offers a great opportunity for climate change resiliency. If designed appropriately, a resilient building is able to absorb the impacts of climate change and provide meaningful reductions towards it. As local green building expert Keith Wynn states, we have to build buildings like our lives depend on it. The most widely adopted model for designing sustainable built environments has been the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design LEED Green Building Rating System from U.S. Green Building Council. Another council, U.S. Green Building Council. However, LEED is not the only building design platform that increases sustainability and contributes to a more climate resilient city. The Living Building Challenge, Energy Star, and the 2030 Challenge are additional third-party means to define and measure green buildings. The Living Building Challenge. Buildings aren't living. Documents aren't living. Corporations aren't living. And yet, why are we acting like it? LEED attempts to define and measure green building. And by the way, I would like to look into all three of these. The Living Building Challenge, Energy Star, and the 2030 Challenge. There's just so many different initiatives to look at. It's crazy. That's a part of it, though, right? To keep us all, confused, or it's just too much for us to think about. When they have 20 plans. LEED attempts to define and measure green building by providing a scorecard and benchmarks for best practices proven to improve building performance in energy saving, water efficiency, emission reductions, improved indoor environmental quality, stewardship of resources, and sensitivity to environmental impacts. Many LEED standards serve to directly reduce climate emissions while building resiliency for the building occupant. Sometimes these design standards extend into the surrounding community. LEED credits categories include, you know what? I don't even need that anymore. Strategies that minimize the impact on ecosystems and water resources, including green infrastructure, smarter use of water inside and out to reduce potable water consumption. Energy and atmosphere credits to promote better building energy performance. Build Back Better, by the way, that is UN World Economic Forum, and then Biden picked it up. But he stopped because people put it together and we don't like it. So he has stopped saying it, but you can still see Build Back Better in some areas. Sustainable building materials and waste standards, indoor environmental quality benchmarks, including air quality and access to daylight and views. Walkable, there's one of the keywords. Mixed use neighborhoods with efficient transportation and good connections to open spaces. The City of Grand Rapids has recognized LEED as a valuable tool to meet its sustainability goals. In January 2006, the City Commission approved a resolution directing city personnel to implement the principles of LEED and the corresponding Energy Star and Green Lights protocols. Green lights. Including a specific requirement that all municipal construction and renovation projects larger than 10,000 square feet and with a cost of greater than $1 million receive LEED certification. So there you go. Any building over 10,000 square feet and with a cost of greater than $1 million must be LEED certified. So they're like, it doesn't matter what I want. If I want a business, it matters what the government wants. Additionally, the city's zoning ordinance was aligned with the pilot-led ND principles, which allows a developer who carefully follows the zoning ordinance to earn LEED neighborhood development certification. Woo! You get an extra cert if you do extra good. It is also home to the first structures with LEED certification in many categories, including the first LEED Gold Art Museum, Grand Rapids Art Museum, the first LEED YMCA, the David D. Hunting YMCA, the first transit station, Rapid Central Bus Station, the first school, Goodwill Environmental. Wow. The first Habitat for Humanity chapter to commit to build all LEED certified housing. The first residence, St. Anthony of Padua Rectory. The first church, Keystone Community Church. The first healthcare project, Lax Cancer Center. And the first double gold building, East Hills Center of the Universe. Whoops. So yeah, Grand Rapids, leaders in sustainable development. Unfortunately, that, I really wish that it wasn't like this, honestly. I would love to actually have people planting trees and people planting, having an opportunity to have a greener city, of course. I just don't like this top-down approach, and whenever the people that actually live in the area say, hey, we don't want this, they just don't listen. So that is my main problem. I'm all for, people in an area fixing up their place and making it more balanced with nature, because we should be more balanced with nature. We're not separate from it, although we act like it. But this is not the way. Leading examples of this include Architecture's 2030 Challenge, which we heard about in that 54-second video at the beginning, to make buildings carbon neutral by 2030, and the Living Building Challenge, which has recently become visible in Grand Rapids thanks to inclusion in a crowdfunded affordable housing project to transform the Baxter neighborhood into a LEED neighborhood development area. Now, again, the surveillance cameras and facial recognition that's in public housing in 6 different areas, although Grand Rapids has denied that they're doing it. Let's just say 5. The fact that that's happening should be really concerning to everybody, because that is, again, the future of these mixed-use housing. It's going to be like China. That's exactly what it's going to be like. You leave your house and you will have a camera looking at your face and watching you wherever you go and reporting on whatever you're doing to whoever is interested. The Living Building Challenge is one of the world's most aggressive green building standards, encouraging developments to generate their own energy and process their own waste. It encourages a collaborative model in which multiple projects or buildings share in infrastructure investments. The petals of the Living Building Challenge Standard 2.1 include limits to growth, urban agriculture, habitat exchange, car-free living. So, they're just saying it. Limits to growth, that is the book. I don't know if I have it close. That the Club of Rome, a group of elitists, like the World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg Group, and G7, and just there's so many, but they're a lot of them are the same people, right? Talking in different areas of the world. Just an excuse to get together and make deals and try to manipulate and control the world. But yeah, set limits to growth, urban agriculture, and car-free living. Those are the 3 that I'd like you to pay attention to. Car-free. Water, net zero water, ecological water flow. Energy, net zero energy. Health, civilized, equity, human scale, and humane places, democracy, plus social justice, rights to nature. Like rights to nature. These are things, again, that we need to consider. What are they talking about here? Are they talking about if you live out in nature, then perhaps you're stopping people from going out to nature? Because right now, everybody can go to the Dragon Trail. If you live in Grand Rapids, you can drive up, park at Nuevo State Park, ride or walk the Dragon Trail. So you have rights to nature. But that's not what they're talking about. And that's another rabbit hole that we should go down. Connie says these plans have been implemented incrementally, so the majority of the population, even though inconvenienced, will not fight them until too late. Right, like the boiling frog. Unfortunately, we don't see it until it's too late. Right, it is slowly move the goalpost, and that is it's genius. This plan. The 21st century, they have 100 years to do it. They're very meticulous, and they're organized and they're patient. They have a plan, and their children, even if they don't, the Rothschild, the Rockefeller, their children will benefit. They will have all the resources by the end of the plan. And so, yeah, it's a big uphill battle. David and Goliath, like I always say, but I have full faith the good will win in the end, and eventually it might turn out to be like the Blade Runners, right? For Grand Rapids. Or maybe everybody in Grand Rapids, except for a couple of you, will love the smart city and love the new sustainable, resilient city. Maybe people will like it. Ultimately, climate change mitigation and resiliency improvements to the built environment are driven by cost and performance. Many private developers prioritize deadlines and budgets over climate resiliency and environment. Yes, that's what private entities are supposed to do. The success of greening the built environment will be determined by the extent to which project managers are able to demonstrate a return on investment or the mitigation of risk. The value of potential gains in efficiency and productivity over the life of the investment, plus the secondary benefits found through marketing claims, talent attraction, and risk mitigation, is significant. There is also emerging evidence that green buildings command higher property values, while resilient buildings command lower insurance premiums. However, due to the relatively low cost of energy, it is difficult to make a business case for some of the most innovative and furthest reaching green building investments. By the way, please let me know if you hear any guitar in the background. My husband got home early from work, and he is practicing his guitar. That's what he likes to do. Let's see. There is a secondary driver in green building and sustainability: leadership. Through its public commitment to green building, the city of Grand Rapids is demonstrating the value of best practices while forcing vendors to adapt practices that may not have otherwise considered. Demonstrating the value of best practices while forcing vendors to adapt practices they may not have otherwise considered. Don't you love that? This phenomenon is well documented locally through nonprofits that seek capital campaign funds through the Wedge Foundation, which requires LEED certification. So this is just telling you exactly how they manipulate private business. In a similar fashion, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority is pushing developers of affordable housing towards sustainable practices through its green building incentives. So carrot and stick, right? Let's bribe them into the EVs. Let's bribe them to make sustainable or green glass or what have you. But us taxpayers are the one that's bribing them. That's why I always say that we're paying for our own enslavement. It's frustrating. It's like they're stealing our money and then forcing us to have these goals and these rules that they want in place. And this is about the limitations of green building and climate resiliency. A 2011 addendum on climate change resiliency, created in partnership with the University of Michigan, was careful to highlight that although greenhouse gas emission reductions by definition mitigate climate change, practitioners should include both mitigation and adaptation strategies so that they may shape the built environment in a way that is both responsive and resilient to future climate extremes. Adaptation is not part of LEED certification. However, through climate change resiliency guidelines, USGBC has provided strong guidance on regionally specific design, construction, and operation strategies to make properties more climate resilient. The core concept is that climate change has made the future inconveniently unpredictable. The core concept within this organization approach is that climate change has made the future inconveniently unpredictable. Like, yes, that's part of the fun, that weather is unpredictable and the climate does change. It can no longer be assumed that the future will be similar to the past. It never was. You were never able to assume that. What are you talking about? Which creates a significant degree of problems for code, standards, and practices. Adaptation strategies are necessary to ensure that the environments we design, build, and manage today will be suitable for a range of uncertain futures. These people drive me nuts. Green building and adaptation strategies must be applied to existing buildings as well as new building projects. And this is where it gets expensive, guys. This is where they price you out of your house. This is where they price you out of your car, like they're doing over in the ULEZ over in London. Think about it. Now you live in a building. Now you have to retrofit certain green infrastructure so that you're compliant with LEED certification. And let's say that costs $13,000. Because why wouldn't it? Now, oh, you can't do it? Well, we'll help you. The government will help you. You just have to give up your private property or whatever. Connie says, I think many like having their own vehicles, and when a push is made to take them away, just might cause some to get more involved. And yes, Carla Hernandez says, the greatest show on earth, full of hogwash. Yes, the greatest show on earth is right. It is. It's all an illusion. It's all a script. And that is kind of the beauty of it, though, because I always bring it up because it's what I visualize. I'm sorry. But at the end of the Matrix, when he knows he is a human, a real human, he is not a part of the Matrix. Therefore, you don't have to follow the rules. All you have to do is say no. Like, he holds up his hand, he stops the bullets, he just says, I deny you. And that's really the power we have, if we remember. We deny you. We deny the Matrix you're trying to build. I am a real human being. And everything, your illusion is exactly that. And I see it as such. So be gone with you and your illusion. Borrowing from the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, ICLEI, process, the steps below describe how a project team can integrate adaptation strategies to existing building sites. Understand regional impacts. Identify climate impacts for the building's region. Evaluate current operational maintenance targets. Understand the maintenance and operations to perform under peak climate conditions. Conduct scenario analysis. Analyze how the building will respond to projected climate change impacts. Modeling different system options under a variety of climatic conditions. Implement adaptation strategies. Install adaptation strategies that provide passive use of efficient responses to more extreme climate events in order to maintain occupant comfort while preventing increased energy use. How are you going to do all this? Like, that's another thing. They have such hubris. They think they can control everything. There's so many unintended consequences for every regulation they implement. Again, hubris. At all levels, the impacts of climate change on the built environment will depend on sensitivity and adaptability, again, as the magic. This time they didn't even put the last C to try to trick us. So it's not really magic that we're using. Senjin model suggests weather trends are relatively easy to project in a general sense, but it is virtually impossible to forecast the myriad impacts with certainty. Of course it is. So why are you even building a whole city around it? Adaptability is a function of flexibility and accuracy of the impact forecasts. By understanding probable impacts Design teams can set modified performance goals, diving deeper into project-specific changes at the building or neighborhood level, and select strategies to increase resiliency and adaptive capacity. Priority should be given to no-regret strategies, those that will generate social and economic benefits whether or not climate change occurs. This right here basically says that even if we're wrong, we shouldn't regret everything we're doing. Even if our model turns out not to be true. You know why they say that? Because time and again, they have claimed that some crazy thing is going to happen by this year, and it never does. Again, I remember acid rain, being terrified as a little girl that when it rains, that it might be acid rain and it might come down into because I was on the top floor, it might come through the roof, burn through the roof and burn me. And I know now it's so stupid, but it's like, it doesn't matter that we were wrong. Doesn't matter if we're wrong now. Priority should be given to no regret strategies, those that will generate social and economic benefits whether or not climate change occurs. Well, none of these are benefits for us. To have no cars is not a benefit. So if you're wrong, then you're taking away our freedom of movement. That's not a good social or economic, that's not a benefit of any kind. Now, what did I say here? Oh, by understanding probable impacts, design teams can set modified performance goals, and I put on here, move the goalposts and equity. So, right, moving the goalpost is exactly what this is saying. We've modified performance goals. Let's see. Carlet Hernandez says, actually, we are blessed because we can live what we want. Should we pay for our own demise? They are selling a bunch of garbage. I definitely don't think so, which is why, eventually we have to question, like, why do we keep giving money to people that are stealing and spending on things we don't want? Why do we do that? Transportation systems are community, economic, and quality of life assets that will be affected by climate change. Transportation is considered one of the largest contributors to climate change. So again, you come up here, priority should be given to no regret strategies, but we're going to have regrets without our freedom of movement and you lying to us about climate change. The IPCC estimates that transportation is responsible for 23% of global energy-related greenhouse gas emissions, with about 3/4 coming from road vehicles. They don't say private vehicles, they say road vehicles. It is estimated that transportation infrastructure in Grand Rapids currently requires $33 million a year to maintain. In 2013, Grand Rapids Sustainable Streets Task Force, man, do we have a lot of task force now. I don't like that. Estimates that it costs $22 million per year to keep 70% of Grand Rapids streets and sidewalks in good or fair condition. Funding has not kept pace, and streets have experienced annual decline. Oh, so that's why we have to not just fix them, even though they've stolen tons of tax dollars. I mean, we have a gas tax, we have property tax, we have road tax, we have income tax, we have tax on tax on tax on tax. So you're telling me that you can't keep up with the roads that we have, but you can actually change one whole road into a bike lane and put trees, a bike lane and trees, you can afford that. It's just a bullshit lie. In 2002, 40% of Grand Rapids streets were in poor condition. Yes, because our government is corrupt and is wasting our tax dollars. Approximately 60% of the city's 588 miles of streets are in poor condition today. Thanks for that. Just like the dams that burst here in Michigan. There's plenty of regulation already on it. Why did that happen? Almost 250 miles of those in poor condition are local or neighborhood streets. As climate conditions shift, portions of this infrastructure will increasingly be subject to climate-driven stresses and require increased resources even to maintain status quo conditions. We need more money. That's why Governor Whitmer was talking about taxing EVs, which, again, no more taxes, less taxes. By the way, I don't know if it's too late, but I saw something about maybe on the ballot here in Michigan, property tax being taken out. We should not have property tax because that means we're renting from the government. The government owns the property. If we don't pay our property tax, they can steal our property from us, even though we paid. It's wrong. So look into that. If you vote, maybe vote to end property tax. That's just one thing less that they could steal from us. The climate changes predicted by magic, I don't even know if Sengen is right. It's probably Sengen, whatever, will directly impact transportation infrastructure and will indirectly impact the system through changes in resource allocation, planning methodology, transit modes, and settlement patterns. Traditionally, constructed roads, sidewalks, and other transportation infrastructure in Grand Rapids will be affected by climate change, presenting new challenges for civil engineers and decision makers engaged in planning and maintaining the city's roads. Road infrastructure was designed to withstand local weather and climate based on historical weather data and records of extreme storms. However, the EPA warns that historical climate is no longer a reliable predictor of future impacts. The EPA. You trust the EPA? Increased precipitation softens and erodes underlying base layers of roads, which results in damaged, warped, and cracked road surfaces. Inadequate drainage exacerbates these problems. During periods of extended high temperatures, the roadway material softens and expands, creating ruts. So they're blaming climate for the fact that our government is corrupt and just steals our money and doesn't fix our roads. That's what that whole thing is. The Grand Valley Metro Council has maintained a policy of no new roads in the greater Grand Rapids area for the past 10 years, since the completion of M6 South Beltline in 2004. The focus on maintaining existing infrastructure encourages denser development and redevelopment of existing properties and space. Dense multimodal mixed-use development reduces the number and length of automobile trips. It also reduces climate emissions from fossil fuels and preserves climate-friendly green spaces. So, several times, they share the plan, and this was back in 2013, and the new mobility plan shares it even more, that multimodal, and, private car. It's the end of private cars, guys. Building these streets in an urban best practice recommended in both the 2002 Grand Rapids Master Plan and the Green Grand Rapids Master Plan update. The City Commission adopted Complete Streets Resolution in 2011, and selected complete streets layouts are already in design with further developments in progress. While climate impacts will generally cause greater expense for transportation planners, there may also be cost savings. The increased variability of weather patterns, for example, may also lead to milder winters, requiring less road salting and fewer repairs. Oh, so there's some good news on warming up a little bit. Again, I don't think that it would hurt Michigan whatsoever to be a little warmer. Assessing agricultural risk. It is important for the agricultural sector to understand its vulnerabilities and prepare for multiple future climate scenarios. The first step to decreasing vulnerability is to assess the risk that a particular operation has when considering the predicted climate changes and impacts. Governmental agencies such as the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, the MDARD, Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture can provide advice for farmers and growers if they have industry-specific resources and expertise regarding climate change. So there's a list, basically, of a bunch of people that are pushing UN Agenda 21. Climate resiliency strategies for agricultural industry. Some of these techniques are expensive and may seem unrealistic for a smaller farmer to pursue. However, farm co-ops already pool resources for harvesting and marketing. This same cooperative idea could be used to collect knowledge, data, regarding impacts from climate change and the proper equipment to mitigate or adapt to its impacts. In Grand Rapids, the Fulton Street Farmers Market already hopes that its venue and planning initiatives will spur conversation about best practices and the opportunities and the challenges that the agriculture system faces. I think they talk about the SNAP program, but I have seen somewhere that they really want to get all of the contributors to the farmers market to have QR codes, to have a certain application. So for the convenience of everybody to know where the produce at the local farmers market is coming from, and a bunch of data on the farms that are contributing to the farmers market. But of course, that can be used for or against the people. And because I don't trust these guys at all, I worry about that. I don't want the people that are at the farmers market to be on a centralized database. I mean, what happened to all the farmers in Russia? Didn't their farms get stolen and given to other people in order for something like equity? And didn't millions of people starve? Like maybe 70 to 80 million people starved to death, or at least total died in Russia because of all their central planning. It's a very dangerous road, very, very dangerous road. And that's why I always recommend try to be as self-sustaining as possible. Try to, have a greenhouse if you can, or chickens, something, because we have cold here, to have food in the winter and the summer. But in the summer, food grows awesome in Michigan. And we can grow a wide variety of food, which is nice. All right. Not only will West Michigan agricultural systems be impacted by climate change, but they can also play a role in diminishing or exacerbating climate change emissions and impacts. For instance, agriculture practices both emit and remove two of the most important greenhouse gases, CO2 and nitrous oxide. Most important greenhouse gases. They are the most important, yeah. But for what? For life? Or are you saying that they're the most important because they're pollutants? Through photosynthesis, crops remove CO2 from the atmosphere and use it to build plant tissue. So you're saying that the more humans there are breathing out CO2, the more potential for green plants to, for plants to build tissue? Like it's intelligently designed and that we breathe out, they breathe in, they being the trees, and vice versa? So everything that you're fear-mongering is BS, and that, in fact, more people just means more green things? It's literally a greenhouse gas? Some of this carbon can be stored in the soil as organic matter. However, when the soil is tilled, microbes are stimulated to move quickly to convert organic carbon to CO2, which escapes into the atmosphere. In most farm soils, tillage has caused 40 to 60% of original soil carbon. So what? So what? Prove carbon bad. In December of 2011, the World Bank, I gotta love when the World Bank gets involved. It's almost as good as the IPCC, published the Sendai Report, Managing Disaster Risks for a Resilient Future. Oh, I trust the World Bank in their report for sure. I do. The report warns that crossing the 2 degree Celsius temperature increase threshold would have major implications on global ecosystems, agriculture and water supply, sea level rise, and storm surges. Assumptions, assumptions, assumptions. Can't prove any of it. Garbage in, garbage out of your stupid model, magic model. The Sendai Report also refers to the IPCC 2012 Special Report on Extreme Events, which details the latest scientific consensus, there we go again, on the likely impact of climate change and natural disasters. Insurance companies, reinsurance companies in particular, are taking action on climate change. They are working into their business models, quantitatively programming it into their rates, and advocating for climate action at the United Nations and the world governments, So now you can't get house insurance unless you were LEED certified. Like that could be a possible future. And you can't be LEED certified unless you spend $10,000 to $20,000 getting your house green, resilient, climate resilient. I mean, that's not happening right now as we speak, but why the hell wouldn't it? How do you think they're going to get their plans in place? They're forcing it on us. How do you think they're going to do it? And again, the rich people are going to have no problems. Obviously, it's just us middle class and poor folk that are going to suffer. Climate change is emerging economic opportunities. Oh, opportunities. Again, we live in like an Orwellian state where good is bad, bad is good. The Mercer report lays out some of the likely winners and losers of climate change. Infrastructure, private equity, and real estate are anticipated to be highly sensitive to climate change, while sustainable assets could act as a hedge. So the Mercer report is saying that the losers are infrastructure, private equity, and real estate. Those are the losers. And sustainable assets could act as a hedge. Well, what the hell are sustainable assets? Good stewardship reflects good management. Wow. Brian Solarino, Vice President and Senior Investment Portfolio Manager for Huntington Bank in Grand Rapids, has thought about sustainable assets for some time. I'm sure he has. Solarino was integral to the creation of Huntington Bank's Ecological Strategy Exchange Traded Fund. He developed the fund to align financial investment with macro societal trends and his belief that human habits, capital, and regulations favor a global environmental movement. He reasons that superior ecological practices are a good indicator of high-quality management. He believes that companies that take steps to reduce pollution, energy use, waste, and overall environmental footprint are run by folks who are just a little bit smarter. And what does this mean? I don't know if he'll say it, but it means that the bank is going to give loans to people that are following LEED certification. So once again, we have multiple ways where they are implementing their plans, whether you like it or not. If this one area fails, well, we got the banks on our sides too, on our side. He believes that companies, oh yes, they're just a little bit smarter. Again, this is a bankster talking. These companies have aggressively pursued low-hanging fruit and then some. They recycle, encourage employees to carpool, and have installed energy-efficient lighting. Some of the organizations have longer-term energy agreements, locking costs in over 20 years, possibly even paying more in the short term to do so. It's good for business reputation, and it's really good for risk management. So insurance companies and banks are both in on it. The fund also includes only public companies with a track record of profitability. So Sonero notes that with sustainability becoming more prominent in business schools and business practices, he has seen a greater number of companies that make environmentally sound products reach profitability. Right. So business schools and business practices, it's seeped into that. And of course, it's because the government, the public, is funding it to make it profitable for the private sector. That's what public-private partnerships are. It's fascism, and we are not getting any money back. The profits that they make eventually, we get none of that. And again, we're investing in something we don't even want. Natural capital can be defined as the raw materials, benefits, and services provided by nature that fuel the basic economic productivity. Zoltan the Man, and that was a long time ago, 33 million, how esoteric. And I'm glad that you caught that as well. Anytime I see 33, I have to admit that I do think of the esoteric symbolism, for sure. Rainfall to irrigate crops, clean water, and clean air, as well as liquid, solid, and organic raw materials are just a few examples. So it may seem impossible to put a value on such important, traditionally invaluable resources. Oh, right, you know what? I'm going to read this. Natural capital is not easy to identify in a relatively depleted and largely built urban landscape, but it is still omnipresent. For example, what is the value of the Grand River as a viable fishery, as municipal receiving water, and as an economic development tool? What boost do riverfront property values get from proximity to a relatively clean, odor-free river? It may seem impossible to put a value on such important, traditionally invaluable resources, but it's not. No, it's one of the things the United Nations wants. Inventory of every resource, and that includes the value. Now, again, how do you put a value on that? These people think they know how. Using an assortment of economic valuation tools and a robust triple bottom line economic cost-benefit analysis that includes major externalities, economists are able to develop reasonable estimates. They make a bunch of crap up. Again, that's their narrative. And that's not to say, of course, water is valuable, but it's invaluable in the fact that you cannot put an actual monetary value on it. And nor should you. Not everything in the world needs a monetary value. Economic valuation of natural capital and environmental services is increasingly common at most levels of government and decision making. Because again, they're doing UN Agenda 21. One of its more common forms is valuation of externalities. The City of Holland recently employed such a valuation when it calculated the sustainable return on investment of 7 different municipal utility energy generation scenarios. Economists were hired to work with community members to value natural capital and monetize externalities, including CO2 emissions, particulate matter, mercury, impact on harbor dredging, lakefront property values, and more. This analysis more robustly captured the predicted economic impact. Figure 23 displays the direct fiscal return for the limited stakeholders involved in the direct financial transactions associated with the scenarios. More interesting is the net social benefit, green, that would accrue to the community at large. Stormwater management. Again, we're going back to magic. Increased precipitation and more intense weather-related events will strain the stormwater system. Oh my God, more rain. More rain and more intense wet weather events. Use the tax dollars and make sure that our frickin' drainage is good. Pretty simple. Done. Don't have to worry about the rain anymore. Magic and National Climate Modeling predicts Grand Rapids can expect increased precipitation. Oh, okay. It's magic. We're just supposed to believe it. The Stormwater Asset Management Plan inventoried the entire stormwater infrastructure system, including pipes, culverts, catch basins, gravity mains, pump screen infrastructure, etc. The inventory was programmed into customizable asset management optimization software. So that is it. You cannot explain it better without just saying inventory and manage of every resource in the world. This is a part of that. You are inventorying the entire stormwater infrastructure system and putting it in for asset management optimization software. This is, again, centralized data to such a degree, it's hard to fathom. The Stormwater Master Plan is an update of the 1994 plan. 1994, right when Clinton started implementing all the sustainable development stuff 2 years after Agenda 21, that established standards with respect to the use and operation of cities' stormwater systems. It discusses the legal and regulatory framework of stormwater management, details existing projects and local watershed plans, and lists recommendations for the future. The Technical Reference Manual lays out stormwater standards, technical criteria, and methods for how projects are to be implemented in the city. The Technical Reference Manual is based in large part on requirements in the city's stormwater ordinance, but enables staff to update technical standards as they become available. An excellent example is the NOAA's recently released Atlas 14 hydrometeorological rainfall data. This is the most up-to-date rainfall data available and should replace the Huff and Angel 1992 report that is currently used in Grand Rapids. This data is important because it is used to design and retrofit stormwater and wastewater infrastructure features such as conveyance and overflow capacity. It will become even more important over time as it works its way into state and national regulatory policy. Because we are in the decade of water, and so stormwater, rainwater, all the water that you can think of is being targeted right now by the United Nations for whatever purpose, and part of that is to inventory. So it goes into flooding, Grand River flood of 2013. Probably, I should have read this section better because I bet you I could have found some crazy crap in there, but I'll leave you to that because I am running out of time and I didn't highlight any of that anyway. So groundwater. In general, climate change will stress surface water supplies and will likely lead to increased groundwater withdrawals, which may lead to significant groundwater depletion and contamination. This is from the Ottawa County Water Resources Study conducted by the Michigan State University, which is regulatory captured. He notes that withdrawals for agriculture, industrial, and domestic use are draining the aquifer faster than it can be recharged, a situation exacerbated by recent drought and snowfall reductions. The MSU study has provided documentation that the remaining water within the aquifer has become more saline as the aquifer is tapped to deeper depths. The report cites similar problems across the state. So this was in 2013, and you have Nestle, which is still draining our aquifer right now and actually had to make a couple new wells. And now we have Goshen that's trying to come up here, and you have all of the different areas that Idra has talked about, Genesee County, Marshall, all of these very water intense industries that our government is bribing to get to come here. And yet 2013 we're already being drained allegedly. Or, is it that it's being drained because they want to implement certain things, but then for the industry it's not being drained? It's okay for the industry? I don't understand what the hell is going on there. Are they lying here, or are they really being drained? That's my ultimate question. Because both could be true. Water efficiency will become a key tool for building resiliency as the climate change distributes precipitation less predictably and with increased variability. Like, how is it less predictable and increased variability? Let's see. Water is now on stock exchange. Really? What can you maybe provide the little code? I'll look into that though, because when did that happen? And I don't have any doubt that it's true, but that is something to consider. Water should be a human right for real. Everybody should have clean water. But Nestle CEO, at least 10 years ago, I don't know if it's the same CEO, said that water should not be a natural right and that we should actually have to pay for water, basically. But of course, Nestle would say that. They want you to buy their bottled water. Water efficiency will become a key tool for building resiliency as a changing climate distributes. I already did that. Although climate change may create a wetter Grand Rapids in winter and spring months, summer will likely experience decreased precipitation. This will be more pronounced in other parts of the country where there is not reliable fresh supply of fresh water. Climate change will likely lead to increased withdrawals for local use and increased potential for withdrawals for use by other regions. It will likely see increased withdrawals for local use and withdrawals for use by other regions. One of the most powerful potential tools in pricing is pricing water in a way that encourages conservation. You read that, it's like, that's the stick, okay? That's not a carrot. That is a stick. That is saying, make it really expensive for them to take showers, and they won't take showers so much. Screw you guys, man. Because again, pricing water, rich people will have all the water they want. The only people hurt by pricing water in a way that encourages conservation are the poor and the middle class, because they're increasingly becoming poor. Connie says both are usually true. Mix some truth in with the lies so no one will notice. The truth is in the details. And Hernandez says that is the plan. Cannot rely on clean water. Yeah. Definitely want to. Goshen, that would definitely destroy the second largest river if something were to happen. So they act like they care about the water, and yet they're okay with possibly poisoning the hell out of it. Water rates should include fixed costs as the foundation, but then increase or decrease on the marginal unit of water consumed. Holy crap. The more closely consumers associate increased water use with increased costs, the more they will be interested in conserving. It's just pure manipulation. There's nothing supply and demand. There is a law of economics, a natural law, one outside of man that we discovered. And they are manipulating it. And again, there's always unintended consequences and intended. When you manipulate a natural thing, like just leave it alone, leave supply and demand alone, let people make their decisions freely, and you will see it works. Grand River restoration and habitat improvements. Like most rivers that run through urban spaces, the Grand River has greatly altered from its natural state. The river has been corralled and channeled, harnessed for productive use, and has served as a sewer for human waste. I didn't know it was used as a sewer for human waste. Dam removal and restoration would allow better flow of sediment, fish, and invertebrate downriver. The series of 4 low-head beautification dams between 6th Street Dam and the Pearl Street Bridge provided only aesthetic functions and likely represent a barrier to native fish species during low-flow conditions. Removal of these 4 dams would increase the amount of habitat available to native species, substantially improving conditions for sturgeon. And again, I'm pretty sure they've taken them all out by now, but I do have to look into that more. I know that some of them have been. I don't know if all of them. Land development in Kent County grew at a rate 3 times faster than population growth. Vacant properties are scattered in and around Grand Rapids, and new housing developments are being built. Thoughtful land management encourages smart development, preserves natural assets, and maintains infrastructure. It also builds climate-resilient communities. So yes, anytime you see smart, think of surveillance. It really is what they're trying to do. 1994 Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act includes provisions that govern pollution levels and stormwater runoff and controls that maintain natural areas across the state. However, many decisions regarding land use and management are left to local governments. Here we go. In accordance with Michigan's long-standing tradition of home rule, as it should be. I live here. People in Lansing shouldn't tell me how I need to live. The responsibility of ensuring stable infrastructure, developing effective zoning ordinances and community development plans, and establishing effective land use plans falls on local units. Deferring these responsibilities to local communities often creates redundant or conflicting land use management strategies across the regions of the state. They don't like it. The state wants to be able to do whatever the hell they want, and having these local townships that can possibly stop them is no good. It's no good. Kent County is no exception. Land management policies and infrastructure overlap between the many of the county's different communities, sometimes with significant differences. Most communities in Kent County have up-to-date plans and active planning commissions that undertake many of the responsibilities. However, regional organizations such as Grand Valley Metropolitan Council, United Growth for Kent County, and the West Michigan Regional Planning Commission promote county-wide collaboration on issues that affect Grand Rapids. This regional approach can help to promote sustainable and resilient land policy throughout the interconnected communities that make up Grand Rapids metropolitan area. And this is why I always stress region. I did get most of my information from the trailblazer that was Rosa Corey, but she was absolutely right. It's not state, it's not county, it's region, because that way you can bypass the local township boards. There's too much possibility for us to try to stop it right now. And they're slowly, although actually quickly now, taking those powers away from the township level. And it's happening right now in Michigan with the wind and solar. So establish a metro-wide system of environmental corridors. Environmental corridors. If you watched my video yesterday, then you know that this is talking about the Wildlands Project. Environmental corridors are going to be areas where humans aren't going to go, and then they'll have buffer zones outside of it, and then they'll have their thousands of acres of solar panels, and then we'll be living in the city. And we'll have the solar panels and the wind turbines in between us and the little safety buffer zone, and then you'll have natural environmental corridors, no humans allowed unless you're a scientist. And then it's all in the Wildlands Project, which is now America the Beautiful. So when they say environmental corridors, it's another thing to keep an ear out for, look out for. Greenways or landscapes which establish convenient, non-destructive public use of our natural environment, including bikeways, recreation area, nature walks, and scenic preserves. Plan and develop timely, orderly, and efficient arrangement of public facilities and services that reinforce local land use plans developed within a regional framework or perspective. Promote a single regional sewer, water, or stormwater authority charged with integrating and equitably paying for the provision of these services within regionally adopted patterns of land use. Promote single regional sewer, water. This is part of that septic movement that's happening too. So it's all interconnected. And again, if you know the master plan, then it doesn't seem like it's a bunch of random occurrences. You know that this is a machine that is working, and most people don't even know they're working in the machine. They were taught. They don't know any better. While some goals, such as the creation of nationwide drain authorities, are difficult to initiate in Grand Rapids and surrounding areas, other goals, such as those dealing with preserving the nature of local neighborhoods and promoting the use of current properties and infrastructure, are already supported. Zoning and land management. Today, these neighborhoods compose the dense development of downtown and many of the commercial strips within the city neighborhoods. Because they were built before the advent of the automobile, they are designed for easy pedestrian access for local residential areas. So some areas of Grand Rapids don't need as much work as others because they were built before cars were a thing. And so they'll be easy to change into walkable 15-minute city vibes. But then you have other areas that were after the war that were all about the automobile. And so those, unfortunately, are going to have to take a lot to change them when we don't have cars. For these different styles of land use within the city, the current Grand Rapids Master Plan encourages different approaches and changes, many of which already orient towards resiliency and sustainability. For pre-World War II neighborhoods, the plan recommends preservation and revitalization. The plan also supports converting post-war developments in areas zoned for commercial use, such as strip malls, shopping centers, into effective, walkable, mixed-use centers to achieve many of the positive benefits that the older neighborhoods have. In general, preserving mixed use and dense development is environmentally beneficial. By allowing Grand Rapidians, oh geez, Lord help me. It always gets harder at the end of the 2 hours, to have essential services and businesses within walking distance of their homes. Fewer automobile trips need to be made, reducing carbon emissions. This is in line with the goals of the Grand Valley Metro Council's Blueprint Report. Finally, concentrating population in a denser urban environment reduces automobile dependence and the need for additional land. So this is the council's Blueprint Report. Finally, concentrating population in a denser urban environment reduces automobile dependency and need for additional land. You can't say 15-minute city any better than that, in my opinion. Man, I have even more to go through, but I am running out of time like I always do. People say my videos are too long, and I love that you guys are hanging out with me and want to know what is going on. I am going to experiment starting next week, Wednesday, with shorter videos. There's still going to be live streams, but I think maybe just one article. So 15-minute video, I'm thinking. I'm going to try that out and see if people like that variability, I guess. I understand that my 2-hour videos are it's a long time. It's a lot of information, very dense. But I think you guys need to know what's going on, and I try to break it down, 10, 50 hours, whatever, worth of research. I try to break it down for you. So again, thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being willing to listen, to learn what the hell is going on in your city. I will link this and the Grand Rapids mobility down below, as I said, and all of the articles that I had here. And tomorrow, I will not be on Turn the Page with Janine. We are switching that to a 4 o'clock time slot on Thursdays. So we're going to see how that works as far as viewership. But we're getting like 4,000 over there on Rumble for the morning. So maybe we'll get more. That'd be cool. So come hang out with us over on Turn the Page with Janine at 4 Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, if you so choose. Tomorrow, I'm going to finish editing the video of the interview I did with the local author, Seamus Pendragon, who wrote this book right here. Actually, you know what? Let me pull myself up. Wrote this book, The Land of the Free, The Home of the Brave, and Other BS. And so I'm almost done with that interview. I'm sorry it took so long, but that should be out by November 1st. And so tomorrow I will not be doing a video, but starting next week I will be doing the shorter ones on Wednesdays. So I think you guys get the idea. Again, I'm sorry I always run out of time and I don't get to finish everything I want to share with you, but maybe I'll just finish with this conclusion and then I will leave. So, recommendations. Grand Rapids needs an individual organization to own and champion the responsibility of building climate resiliency in our community. So we're going to get a World Economic Forum champion. The champions need a directive and resources to engage the community across sectors. Existing local community climate resiliency narratives and leaders should be highlighted. Champions should utilize resiliency concepts, issues, and strategies identified in this report to evaluate existing plans and to inform priority implementation. And environmental issues as such is important when planning for resiliency to consider not only solutions for the ecosystem components themselves, but also for that of those willing, but also those that will preserve communities' ability to interact with those resources. Study the impact of climate change on the water filtration plant, increase watershed level cooperation among sewer, water, and stormwater authorities, establish a metro-wide system of environmental corridors, greenways, or landscapes which create convenient, non-destructive public use of our natural environment, including bikeways, recreation areas, nature walks, and scenic preserves. Preserve and grow mixed-use and dense development neighborhoods, making essential services and businesses accessible through multimodal means of transportation. Continue monitoring Great Lakes and aquifer water levels to more precisely understand the multiple causes and effects of fluctuations. Right, because they don't really know. Improve the quality of Grand River and its tributaries by restoring it to a more natural state. Adapt a stronger urban canopy, which more trees. I'm never against more trees, although they're going to use the Grand Rapids tree map to precisely put exact trees that they want. Because it's the extreme order, right? Extreme order. We have inventory and management of all things, every single tree in existence, all the water, you can't get more orderly. And we need a balance between order and chaos in order to live a full, beautiful life. So hopefully you learned something. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you hopefully on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll talk about, different things that are going on in the world, not so deep as all this. So I'll see you guys. And Connie says they are long, but info-packed. They go fast. Thank you. You are always here for me. I love you and Dragonfly. And now we have Carlot and Zoltan the man. So thank you guys for hanging out. I'm thankful for your research, Michelle, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys too. So I wouldn't do it without you. So thank you for being here. I'll see you on Thursday.